Good evening and welcome to yet another session with Medicine Man. Today we are doing the second CEO Roundtable 2021 series, and we have a galaxy of pharma leaders both from abroad and from India discussing with us on the challenges facing the pharma industry today. So let me quickly introduce you to our keynote speaker and the panel members. We are privileged to have Dr. Mahender Nayak, who is the area head for Takeda Pharmaceuticals for the ICMEA region, to deliver the keynote address for the Pharma CEO Roundtable 2021 series. And he will be talking on engaging doctors digital and hybrid, translating strategy into action. What does it take? So let me quickly introduce Dr. Mahender Nayak to you. Dr. Mahender Nayak is the area head for Takeda Pharmaceuticals in the ICMEA region, which includes India, CIS, Ukraine, the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. He enjoys over 2 decades of performance-driven leadership across the pharmaceuticals and broader healthcare industries. In his current capacity, Dr. Nayak is overseeing the development of Takeda in the ICMEA region. His proven ability to lead, motivate, and develop people across the geographies and cultures is key to ensure the success of the company in accommodating pharmaceutical growth trends. Prior to joining the ICMEA region, Dr. Nayak was in charge of portfolio management for the growth and emerging markets while at Singapore between 2018 and 20. Dr. Nayak was also the general manager of Takeda's operations in Korea. During the period 2013 and 2015, Dr. Nayak was the Senior Director of Global Marketing, Cardiovascular, and the Executive Commercial Operations for Asia Pacific, where he established the regional commercial operations infrastructure to drive capabilities across a broad range of business functions. He was also the Marketing Director for Asia Pacific between 2011 and 2013. An industry veteran, prior to joining Takeda, Dr. Nayak assumed various regional commercial responsibilities while at AstraZeneca, where he was a critical success factor in leading commercial growth across the region. Dr. Mahender Nayak joined Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Since then, grew the company to hold various senior roles and responsibilities in different markets. His expertise and understanding of the healthcare sector's dynamics, coupled with his ability to lead teams to achieve robust business results, reflects his strategic insight and overall passion. As panel members, we have Dr. Peter Velez, a medical doctor who has worked in the Medical University Sofia in Bulgaria and at the High Medical School, Hanover, Germany, as a gastroenterologist. He has over 27 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry in senior positions. Dr. Velez realized the importance of communication in healthcare and pharma and expanded his business into publishing. 8 years ago, having understood the need for digitalization in the pharma industry and the limitations of the current marketing model, he founded CredoWeb. Prakash Maheshwari is a healthcare business leader with an entrepreneur mindset and an ability to attract, develop, and strengthen management teams to maximize company efficiency, growth, and profitability. Adept in accelerating business through therapy shaping across the patient journey, he has used a variety of strategies, including conceptualizing innovative Pill+Service solutions via win-win partnership, creating new business models, and enabling structures to achieve these goals. We have Sourabh Agrawal, an experienced professional in the healthcare pharmaceutical industry with diverse exposure of handling business operations, sales, marketing and branding, business development, portfolio, SFE, and P&L. In his current role at Lupin, Sourabh is responsible for chronic care business like cardiology, diabetes, metabolism, oncology, as well as the Sri Lanka operations. Salil Kallianpur has been with MedicinMan since inception as an editorial board member. Salil Kallianpur is a marketing, strategy, and digital transformation advisor and mentor to companies, leveraging extensive experience in the pharmaceutical industry. He is a valued external speaker and industry thought leader. Salil is also a visiting faculty at NMIMS, Mumbai. He spends time mentoring healthcare startups. Finally, we have Praful Akali, the founder and MD at Medulla Communication, which is among the most awarded healthcare creative houses with close to 50 shortlists and over 20 awards all over the world. As one of the few creatively renowned professionals who has worked as a client last at Pfizer, Praful demonstrates how creativity and effectiveness work together. Praful has served as a jury member at various global awards and has been a speaker as well at international forums, and his opinion pieces have appeared in several advertising and business publications. So we have a very illustrious keynote speaker, Dr. Mahender Nayak, and after his keynote address, we will be having a panel discussion. So let's go over and listen to what Dr. Mahender Nayak has to say, and then we will have the panel discussions.
Hello, everyone. Not many may know, but Takeda has a 240-year-old legacy where it has embraced many advancements in technology over the decades and centuries. As a global top 10 pharma company, we're now a truly multinational company where our strength and success lies in our diversity. So we are proud of our values that have stood the test of time, and we remain agile to adapt to the changes in this ever-evolving world that we live in. We, in fact, refreshed our corporate philosophy to be relevant for now and in the future, highlighting our imperatives as an organization on patient, people, and planet, and underscored by the data and digital, which we'll talk more about today. We always put patients at the center, a principle that pushes us to think broader. Our application of digital gives us the ability to explore innovation. And innovation for gathering data, supporting inclusion of patients treated in the real world settings, and establishing new multi-stakeholder partnerships, which can truly drive solutions to improve patient care and provide long-term support. Pharma, as you all know, has unfortunately not been in the forefront to adopt digital. The pandemic, in a way, has compelled pharma to adopt to a more flexible, digitally driven approach, especially for stakeholder interaction. But I believe that a lot remains to be done to achieve greater engagement. And COVID-19 over the last 18 months has shifted the daily operations of HCPs to more virtual interactions with both patients and pharma companies. Clearly, HCPs see great value in more virtual interactions. The vast majority of HCPs have seen pharma companies change and evolve in these last 18 months. The competition for airtime with HCPs and the need to make every interaction matter has forced pharma companies to elevate the quality of discussions, respecting the limited time that we have with our customers. The services that pharma companies offer also needs to be meaningful and differentiated. We are hearing from the HCPs who state that the communication and services that pharma companies are now offering are of higher value than before the pandemic. So now is the time for pharma companies to redefine our relevance and build on creating more value for the future. Now, talking about how Takeda is addressing this shift. In our commitment to improving patient outcomes, we've been continuously striving to create new expectations with our stakeholders. We're doing this by supporting and championing patient and physician communities through new innovations and collaborative partnerships to advance care. And globally, digitization is an ongoing priority with Takeda. We've tied up with Accenture and Amazon Web Services, where we have a 5-year strategic agreement to accelerate Takeda's digital transformation. This long-term collaboration, I believe, will fuel Takeda's cloud-driven business transformation by modernizing platforms, accelerating data services, and establishing an internal engine for innovation. And in turn, equipping Takeda's employees with new skills and ways of working. So even before the pandemic, our CRM, for instance, only had a face-to-face option. However, as soon as the pandemic hit, Takeda configured its CRM to reflect all the channels of interaction. In addition to face-to-face, we're looking at virtual platforms, which you're familiar with, such as Teams, Zooms, and WebEx, and then also, as well as conference calls, telephone calls, SMS, and emails. We quickly evolved our CRM to support and embed new modules like Viva Engage. We're now fully able to organize meetings involving multiple HCPs, like roundtable meetings or peer-to-peer meetings through our CRM modules. We're working towards embedding or integrating new future-ready modules like AI to gain real-time insights, gamification, which will enable commercial learning through games for sales teams, and account planning module for holistic account planning and management. When adopting external platforms, Takeda continues to integrate all sorts of channels, platforms that the HCPs found useful, including public and third-party channels like Docplexes, where we engage HCPs through curated content and surveys. Changing the engagement model from face-to-face to digital and hybrid requires a complete mindset shift for the field force, may it be sales or MSLs, as well as our marketing teams. We undertook systemic sensitization and training programs, including classroom learning, mock calls, experiential training programs, etc. But not only upskill on the new technologies, but also capacity building in terms of virtual soft skills, compelling pitches, and negotiation and influencing skills virtually. So within these last 6 to 8 months, we've had almost 90% reporting on virtual platforms as compared to before the pandemic. And we witnessed huge behavioral shift both in the field teams as well as the HCP's hybrid model adoption. We have made good progress, but there's a lot that needs to be done. And finally, how must our industry practices evolve? Firstly, we need to put in the efforts to building an understanding of the needs of the HCP in this evolving environment. Across medical specialties and therapeutic areas, the treatment of patient has fundamentally changed. HCPs are rapidly adjusting how they deliver care, such as increased use of telemedicine that we've seen in a few of our countries. As a result, the support they need from pharma companies, payers, and other stakeholders is also changing. As an industry, we must first understand from which channels the payers, physicians, and patients derive the information and then target them specifically. Such strategies need a combination of online as well as offline communication measures. This will create a personalized and tailored campaign to reach physicians, possibly leveraging the insights from traditional as well as AI technologies. The longer social distancing restrictions continue, the more changes they're expected to bring to the future interactions. For pharma sales, it means that the field forces will need to move away from one-size-fits-all communication approaches and adapt to varying customer needs. This is something that can be integrated into the omni-channel infrastructure, which we need to build. So thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure addressing all of you.
So I trust all of you have made some notes on the CEO keynote address delivered by Dr. Mahender Nayak, and would first like to take what is your first response to Dr. Mahender Nayak's keynote address, and I will ask Dr. Peter Velez to go in first. Dr. Peter, your take.
Hello, it's a pleasure to having me. Really, it's we're living in a challenging time. Challenging means that COVID changed everything. Our private life, our business model, influence many industries. And this is something what we have to accept, and we have to think in this direction. The main challenges, what we see in the keynotes, are really that the digital acceleration is fact. We have to go ahead. We have to change our business model. We're speaking about the pharmaceutical industry, but everything also in the healthcare industry changed dramatically. I fully agree with the statement that the patient are always first. This is our main topic, but we have to offer to the doctors, to the healthcare professionals, and to patients as a pharma industry leader, first understanding, support, and everything based on the change of their behaviors. because you know that the telemedicine is fact, is growing rapidly. Dr. Google is not enough. The pharma industry has to change the attitude, instead to be drug supplier, to be service supplier. So we have to support the patient. Then we have to go and to work on the digital transformation, but not only in the procurement of the pharmaceutical industry, but also in the communication to our target group, to build communities and to offer excellent, let's say, continuous medical education services with a really value added to the doctors based on their heavy schedule. And this bring, of course, for long-term digital engagement. This is something what we have to think and to change in our companies. Of course, to do this, we have to change many things in the company, starting with the mindset, starting from the C-suite, because this is political decision. And in the keynotes, we saw that this is fact in many big companies, in Takeda as well. So I fully agree, this is a very crucial but very difficult first step. Of course, speaking about digital, we have to think not only about the common, the standard, let's say, channels like webinars, like mailing, like chat. This is the base. We have to think beyond, because there are much more options which will give the opportunity to be much more effective and to increase the engagement, speaking about patient and HCPs. And of course, the main challenge is how to do this. This is crazy story. I have a lot of experience because I invested in a digital platform, CredWeb, which is now in Europe, in Latin America. We are trying to do our first step in India, really very difficult. But I think the first step was done. India is moving fast. I know India since 20 years. I'm really impressed from what happened during last 20 years in India. And I'm pretty sure that in 1-2 years, the maturity of the digital understanding will be changed dramatically. Of course, it needs leaders who have to guide their companies to support the first steps, to be not afraid to fail, because all this something like new language. You have to study the language, to do the first, the second, the third, and then to be able really to communicate properly. And I think that this needs reconstruction, especially speaking about the size of field force in India, which is huge. And it's not so effective because of COVID, because of many circumstances, you know very good what changed the behavior and the expectation of ACPs change also. So they are having a total different level of understanding. More than 70% of doctors, they expect that they will not come back to the pre-COVID time. So to have so much meetings in person with Salesforce, this is all terror. And the last thing what I want to say is, we're speaking about pre-COVID, COVID, but it will be not post-COVID, because COVID will stay with vaccination or without. Of course, much better with vaccination, because then this medical problem will be managed, but much better. But it means that all these challenges, what we are facing now, will stay for minimum for 10 years. This is a very short article done by McKinsey.
Thank you, Peter, for those insights that you've given. It's always nice to hear from somebody who travels to India once in a year and over a long period of 20 years, because we in India tend to think that everything has remained the same, but it requires a pair of eyes from outside India to come and see the dramatic changes that is taking place in India. So Prakash, you have heard what Peter had to say about the keynote address by Dr. Mahender Nayak. Your take on Dr. Mahender Nayak's keynote address.
Thanks, Anup, and it's my pleasure to be on this forum. And it's pleasure to hear Dr. Mahender Nayak's point of view on how the COVID has accelerated the whole digital transformation. And I think I can't agree more with what he said, that I think patient first is the most important priority for all of us. And I think it's not something new for pharmaceutical companies. All these years, all these functions have created very safe and effective products for HCPs in turn to be given to patients. But I think patient centricity has taken a different meaning of how we can offer beyond pill solutions, and that's something which really excites me. So I definitely agree with what Mahender has mentioned about that patient is at the center and will always remain at the center as far as pharmaceutical operations or healthcare operations is concerned. I think what has happened in the whole COVID period is the only way we could connect with customers and consumers was digital channel, and it lasted so long that it has resulted into a great shift in behavior. And I personally feel that that's gonna be because this behavior change in many areas has become a permanent change. So I see a significant behavior shift in both consumers, which I say sufferers, in the doctors, as well as in the pharmaceutical organizations as well, in both sales and the head office team who actually are responsible for marketing. Yes, there is a long way for us to do, because what we typically do is kind of a random digital marketing, but a real 360-degree omnichannel marketing with right mix of channels and a right frequency of channel is something which we still need to do. But I think there is a lot of baby steps that has happened in last 18 months, and that has actually accelerated the adoption of the digital channels among the healthcare community as well. I definitely agree with what Mahender has said, that I think partnerships is going to play a very, very critical role. Partnership with healthcare organization, partnership with health tech organization, be it the technology platform provider, or be it the digital service for the patients provider. And that's going to help us. And everything is based on I would agree, everything is based on whole cloud technology, and that's where the data resides, and that's where the information is available for anybody to consume. So I think partnerships is definitely going to play a big role with various digital health tech organization, and that's something which is we are witnessing. And therefore, the imperatives for various pharmaceutical companies is to keep investing on the digital health tech organization, because that's where the adoption in digital therapeutics or digital services is gonna further accelerate. Another thing which possibly is an imperative when we say patient first is to understand the whole patient journey, the sufferer's journey. And pharmaceutical companies need to definitely solve the problems by creating beyond pill solutions, and that's something is a significant part of patient centricity, and those are the services which can really create a amazing customer experience, because it's all about CX now. It's all about how beautiful customer experience you can create by offering beyond pill services. I think technology it has to become the backbone of pharma ecosystem, and all artificial intelligence or machine learning actually required to automate many areas, and not just only the commercial function of sales and marketing. And that's gonna further help to kind of give a great customer experience and consumer experience. It's all about how best experience you can provide to healthcare practitioners and to the sufferers, and I think Mahender has mentioned all those parameters, all those pointers in his communication. So I completely agree with what Mahender has said, that we are embarking the whole journey of acceleration of digital promotions and digital marketing, and not only we need to be centric to the healthcare practitioners, but we definitely need to be much more centric to the end user, who is the patients and the caregivers as well. Thank you, Anup.
Thank you, Prakash. That must be music to Salil's ears, because he's been talking about customer experience for a long time and going beyond the pill into the services that make the experience a meaningful one, both for the physician and the patient. So Praful, you've been working with Indian companies for close to 10 years now, and you have been privileged to be on both sides, working with the pharma industry and then serving the pharma industry through the services. So, what is your take on the keynote address by Dr. Mahender Nayak?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on this forum. I've already learned so much from Dr. Nayak and from Prakash. What was beautiful for me is that, industry folks talking about having used COVID to not just learn about digital, but actually experiencing digital. I remember like even a year back when, pharma company leaders were talking about COVID and how we need to kind of focus on digital. It's beautiful how every conversation is talking about the maturity of those experiences, actually having gone out there, done stuff, seeing how it impacts us in very, very different ways. Loved seeing that and very inspirational for me as a service industry person working with the pharma folks, both what Dr. Nayak and Prakash have said till now. The one thing I would like to call out is the patient centricity piece that both Dr. Nayak and Prakash have been saying. It's very easy for all of us when we see COVID, we see the lockdown. Everyone's been saying, therefore, we need to up the use of technology. We need to up the use of digital media. But very few folks are saying that we need to up our patient centricity because of COVID. Right? This is a very rare conversation on most fora that we get to hear. Everyone's like, oh, we need to do digital and technology and application of technology. But patient centricity, which is almost like coming back to the basics, and which the industry in India, even pre-COVID, just did not do enough of, is something that we really need to remember is very, very important. Now, why does the pandemic or the lockdown, we all know why it, needs us to focus more on the digital aspects or the technology aspects. But why does it need us to focus more on the patients? What happens is that we have very few touch points with the doctor, and the doctor has very few touch points with the face-to-face touch points with the patient. In the past, we could easily, have face-to-face interactions with the doctor. The doctor could easily have face-to-face interactions with the patient. In the lockdown and in the future going forward, like Dr. Velez was suggesting, it's going to continue to be the issue where we don't get that face-to-face connect. And therefore, every connect that I do get, am I adding value to the doctor? Am I adding value to the patient? The doctor is also most worried about adding value to that patient. So when we look at it from a lens of patient centricity, as a pharma company, as a service provider to a pharma company, I think we'll really be able to add that value. Right? We'll be able to support pharma companies can support doctors can support patients. So that, back to the basics mentality is something I'm hearing on this forum for the first time. So I'm excited already. The second thing to talk about is the patient networking and the doctor networking and communities that Dr. Nayak spoke about. That again is something that very few people talk about. We had this whole conversation in terms of let's talk to patients more, let's educate patients more. We talk about adherence, but it's somewhere in our lens, without even realizing, we are talking about us communicating to a patient directly, right? If you realize it, what is the difference between web and Web 2.0? Web 2.0 is social media. Web 2.0 therefore was different from Web 1.0 in that sense, where it was not about one-way communication and throwing education, throwing communication, throwing support down, throwing information out at people, but it is about networking people so they learn from each other. And the peer-to-peer power, the trust in brands at the doctor level or at the patient level is never going to be as high as the trust in a peer group. So when we pharma companies help doctors network with each other, help patients network with each other, build these communities, even help doctors network better and communicate better with their patients. Uh, that's when we're really truly supporting them versus looking at it in the old fashioned way of just throwing content and information at them. These guys are very sharp. They can teach each other. Let's just build the networks, and that's the difference between a one-time leveraging and having to, go and talk to them every day and hammering the message again and again every day versus just truly using the power of the internet. So I love that these conversations are already happening, both in Dr. Nayak's keynote address and in the points that Prakash and Dr. Velez have already made. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Praful, for those responses. Sourabh, what are your thoughts on listening to Dr. Mahender Nayak?
Yeah, I think I was listening to even Praful talking and Dr. Nayak's address. I think patient at the center is something which is really coming up as a big theme. And last couple of years, not just mapping, about what our customers feel, which are primarily HCPs in India, but also about what are the patient experiences and how, as a healthcare provider, we can meet both the ends. Because finally, what I realize is, only if you focus on one side, which is typically HCP, and do not appropriately take care of the whole patient journey, I think we are not doing full justice to the entire expectation that a patient has from healthcare providers. I mean, pharma or a doctor or other care providers, they have a whole lot of role to play in this entire journey. And hence I very much echo about this whole thought. And while I was reading about this whole idea of having a panel discussion about how the whole healthcare industry is changing post the COVID scenario and how things are shaping up, I realized the change is already here. I mean, whether we recognize or we don't recognize, if we don't make sufficient moves fast enough, this wave will probably, will leave a lot of companies or people behind, because it's no more a choice. Rather, until now, patient centricity or digital adoption or mapping the customer journey was probably a choice many of the healthcare providers were thinking whether to adopt or not adopt. But in last 2 years, I think we have learned very clearly that it's no more a choice. It's here. So either we adopt and move ahead, or we perish. I mean, that's the way things are shaping up or changing. So that's typically what I feel about the whole concept. And technology that way is playing a big role in terms of helping us achieve those objectives. Because while until now also people were focused on technology, data, etc., but the aggregated view and using technology for customizing the journey for patients as well as HCP has been accelerated now. Even in our own experience, if I look at our own organization, I think we have moved very swiftly in this direction in last 2 years, very, very swiftly. I think this would have taken easily anything like 5 years for us to adopt. But today we are already talking about, hyper personalization. We are talking about N is equal to 1 kind of strategy for mapping each of the customer journey, and not just looking at one phase of HCP interaction with the healthcare, but all the facets of a customer or a consumer both. And then all the platform, whether it is platform provided by CRM tools, Viva being the earliest one, and now you have Adobe, which is available now, you have Oracle, which has their own platform, Salesforce do offer a fantastic platform. All of them put together, they are giving unique opportunity to map the entire journey, customize the offering, and then do certain things which are not generic in nature. So no more it's a spray and pray kind of model. I mean, it's more about how do you use the aggregated view or the data which is available on these platforms and drive value for brand building or drive value for customers. I think we have seen this happening a lot. Our company, at least I feel in Indian pharma space, must be amongst some of the front runners in terms of adopting some of these platforms. More of it, I think we will see in terms of delivery when we have a longitudinal view for a couple of years, because currently the available data is only for last 2 years or so. Right? I mean, if this is happening over last next 5 years, 10 years, then we'll have a solid backup in terms of longitudinal journey of each HCP or each patient type, each disease areas, and so on and so forth. So, that's what we are at least looking at. Couple of other changes which which has happened more at the frontline level in terms of field operations has been making rep more enabled or equipped, because we have also learned new ways of communicating with care providers, not just the conventional way of brick and mortar when the guy goes and meets the doctor in the clinic or a patient is interacted through a service provider. Now we have a new enabled platform which help him to improve his productivity in terms of how he interfaces with the doctor. He's no more just giving a plain detailing call. I mean, he's more enabled. He knows what exactly happened in my previous discussion, what happened in the digital meeting which I organized, what happened in other platform where I have engaged a HCP or a customer. And then based on that, there are nudging which is happening. So I think we have even adopted those kind of platform which are smart enough to give at an individual rep level, what's the kind of pattern or behavior he has, and therefore what kind of requirement he is having for his own business, his own territory or his own town or his own geography in dealing with a particular type of product, whether it's a knowledge requirement, whether it's a service requirement, whether it's an effort requirement, and so on and so forth. So in all of that, technology is helping in big way, whether it's dealing with customers with the HCP or making our reps more smarter in terms of with AI helping them in terms of nudging and all of that. So this pandemic has really helped us to accelerate that journey.
Great. So Salil and I were thinking it's only the two of us who have benefited from the pandemic because we enjoyed working from home for 1.5 years. Our suitcases were tucked away. We didn't open it. It's good to hear that Prakash and Sourabh also have enjoyed the pandemic in terms that it has helped them to see what's been happening, what's working and not working, and therefore go in for digital adoption in a big way. I like what you said, Sourabh, that smart rep. I think that's what we are looking for. How can we bring about a new smart rep who has access to the various technologies that will make his interaction with the HCPs more meaningful? So Salil, can you quickly sum up for us what Dr. Mahender Nayak has said, as well as Dr. Velez and Prakash and Praful, and just now what Sourabh has shared? Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Anup. It's really nice to hear the views from practicing leaders like Prakash and Sourabh. Of course, Peter and Praful and you and I have been talking a lot about this, and so we know each other's points of view. But from practicing leaders like the two of them, I think this is really, like you said, music to my ears. I want to look, the perspective is slightly different, right? We're talking about a CEO roundtable forum. Now, at a CEO roundtable forum, if we don't talk about patient centricity and if we don't talk about culture change, what are we going to talk about? So I think this was quite expected from somebody at Mahender's level. Mahender is very senior in Takeda, and obviously he has to set the vision for the company. And so therefore, it's very, very obvious that he's thinking about how the next 5 years are going to happen in Takeda. And so therefore, it's about putting patient first. It's about thinking about technology. It's about thinking about what are the other changes that are likely to happen in the environment. I think it's been very nicely echoed by both, by Peter, by Prakash, by Sourabh, and also, Praful gave us a little bit of a view of the other side of the table, which is where, Anup, you and I are also on. So that kind of summed it up nicely. But I want to tie up this with something that I think we left off the table, and that is about the culture, right? And so one thing that we are going through is a transformational change at this point of time. And at the transformational change, while it is probably easy for somebody at Mahender's level or at Prakash's level or Saurav's level to be able to adapt, how easy is it for the rest of the management or the rest of the organization through the hierarchy to understand the vision that Mahender has laid out for us? When we talk about going digital, when we talk about a digital first interaction with an HCP, it involves a lot of different things, of which technology is a small part. The larger part is about understanding, about having empathy. It's about compassion. It's about understanding people from where they're coming, what their actual needs and wants are, right? We make it quite impersonal by talking about data, by talking about analysis, by talking about tools and platforms and all of that. So tech is one part of it. If we were to say, as leaders of organizations, if we were to lay out the vision of saying that let's go digital, how many would really understand it within our teams, and what do we do to drive that culture down the team? I think that is a point of view that we should think about. When we talk about digital, is it people think about technology first, where in my understanding, that is about moving from digitally aware or digital unawareness to digitally aware. Now, suddenly I know that digital is not going to be something that is a fad or something that is the future, but it is here and now, and I need to do it now. And so then what does it make me do? Do I pick up a lot of technology? Do I invest in software, hardware, third-party companies, or do I have a cohesive strategy? Do I have a cohesive vision from which that cohesive strategy emerges? And how am I able to communicate that cohesive vision and strategy down the ranks? Because I'm not able to do this on my own as a leader, right? I can set the vision, but the people have to be able to run this. What is their level of, how compassionate am I about, how empathetic am I about that with my team? Okay, how can I transfer that empathy and compassion on how they should interact with customers in an impersonal medium, where a lot of those things are going to happen offline on online and not offline. Okay, going forward, if the rep is going to emerge as a hybrid rep, what are the different skill sets that the person is going to require? The MR 2.0 is going to be very different from an MR 2.1, right, or 1.0. What are those changes? How are we preparing the organization for that? And then how does that transfer not only within the organization but also outside of it? How do I set a culture of thinking new, thinking agility, thinking about customers, putting, like Mahender said, putting patient first. Now, putting patient first, how do I make it an action from a phrase? Everyone's talking about, we put posters all over the office talking about patient first and all that, but is that really being taken up as a mission, on that level? So I think going forward, it'll be great if we can get the views from Prakash, from Sourabh, from Mahender, and Dr. Peter also, and try and see what this actually means in terms of laying out the plan, laying out, brass tacks, and getting it from vision to actual action.
Great. Thank you, Salil. That was a great summary of what was discussed so far. So let me move on to the questions. Prakash, I'll let you go take the first question. The creation of communities, both patient and HCP, is quite new to pharma. What's the end game here? Is it a source of data for business intelligence, or is it something more? You can take it first, Prakash, and then Peter can go, and then Sourabh, and finally Praful.
Oh, thanks, Anup. And before I answer this question, Anup, I would like to build the point which Salil has mentioned, and it was like quite interesting point talking about culture. And I must say that, look, beyond providing infrastructure, beyond creating, beyond getting the right talent, and beyond just saying that, look, guys, we need to go for digital. The most important thing need to be developed within the organization is inclination to experiment, and give them confidence that there could be failure, but I think take it lightly and move on and learn with an experience and go on, because digital is not easy. Digital adoption is not going to be easy, and therefore people should be given a full confidence that there is no kind of consequences even if you fail in digital strategy as well. And that's something which is a big piece in culture, I must say, Salil. And that's where the CEOs need to really come forward, beyond creating infrastructure, beyond creating beyond putting right talent and structures within the organization. They need to really create a very conducive environment for people to experiment even if they fail. Coming to your question of communities, Anup, I think I must say that, look, community is not something which is new for pharmaceutical company, right? We from pharmaceutical companies are really supporting communities. As far as doctors are concerned, we are continuously working very closely with various medical associations, supporting in generating newer evidences, guidelines, algorithms, consensus papers, and so on and so forth. And there are local communities and there are national communities. So as far as doctor community is concerned, I think pharmaceutical companies are aggressively supporting it. Earlier in the form of physical, now in the form of both physical and digital. But one thing I would like to say that patient community is still relatively new to the industry and in particular in India. And the advantages of patient community is far more than what we can kind of envisage. And it's not just the data, because there are a lot of places wherein we can get data, but definitely not just the data here. There are something more which we kind of try and leverage from patient community, which is basically, you know, in the busy hours of clinic, when the doctors are unable to provide sufficient information about the problem, I think the patient awareness about the disease is one very good source which patients can get from patient community. I think it's about reassurance that yes, you can come out from this problem, come out from these medical issues, not just knowing beyond how to live with the problem. And I think by creating this kind of communities, we can definitely reduce the kind of burden to the whole healthcare ecosystem which we are witnessing in India, be it in the clinic or be it in the hospital. So now I think, with the avenues of the whole digital disruption which is happening, both the type of communities, be it doctor community or patient community, it can go beyond just the physical, and it can really become very big when it becomes a digital community. I think with increased adoption of whole infrastructure, which is digital infrastructure, the possibilities of such communities is much higher due to ease of connecting, due to ease of communicating, learning from each other. And Praful has mentioned, the peer-to-peer interactions and learning is definitely much more possibilities with the kind of digital communities we can create. Now there is no more boundaries. There are many platforms and many startups which are coming up with which doctors not just can acquire the knowledge of various disease and management, but I think they can easily build the skills as well to kind of do the various procedures as well. And I see there are the challenges as well. When we say communities are really helpful, there are certain challenges as well, that there are so many communities which is getting created, and there are loads and loads of content which are available for both patients as well as for doctors. I think what is related, what is required is the specificity, what is required is the relevancy as well. And that's where the patients and the doctors are choosing as to where they can get the most relevant content, where they can get the most trusted content, and that's where the role of communities are playing. So net I must say, Anup, is doctor community is not new for us. It's just that it is changing its shape and form, going beyond physical, and it's becoming digital as well. And peer-to-peer learning is an extremely important parameter that is getting added. Patient communities also no more the Western buzzword now. In India as well, we see a lot of patient communities are getting created. Few communities I'm aware about, diabetes community is very well taken up by some of the companies and external partners as well. There are communities for liver disorders as well which are available, and patients are connecting. There is another community which is available for inflammatory bowel disease, where patients are communicating with each other and trying to understand the awareness about the problem and how to live with the problem as well.
Great, Prakash. Thank you for those wonderful insights. That yes, you have rightly said, the CEOs must set the culture ball rolling, and they have to ensure that to fail is not to stumble over something, but to learn something from that and pick up the ball and get rolling again. Dr. Peter, you have built a lot of peer-to-peer community in Bulgaria and in Europe. I would like to know your insights. What's the European experience in building doctor communities, and how has it worked there for you?
Thank you, Anup. I fully agree with Prakash's statement. Fully agree. I will not repeat. I will focus more on the so-called content community management, because the traditional business model done by the pharma industry is clear. There are, let's say, many communities with HCPs, with patients. But now the new technology gives us a total new level of reach and frequency. Speaking about patient, the brand disease awareness and brand awareness campaign are much easier to be done. We could track the patient, we could really create communities, and we could support the patients in their journey. This is now very easy to be done with the new technologies. Speaking about HCPs, to create a community based on the common interests, to support the brand of the company, the brand of the product groups on the product, this is now the crucial. Why? Because everything changed as we spoke in the first part of the session. So the behavior change, the patient change their behaviors, the expectation, the HCPs as well. And now using the digital technologies, this is much, much more easy. And speaking about the hybrid model, where the traditional model will be mixed with the digital. Digital will not replace the traditional one. It only increase the efficiency dramatically and optimize the cost, of course. So, and the good thing is that the digital, you could measure everything. So you could exactly measure all your activities in this society. And the key is, if you're using, your company is using CRM, you have the classical profile of the doctor, HCP. But the digital technologies give you the opportunity to have the digital profile of the doctor. This is following let's say their journey, what they're looking for. Of course, we have to change our mindset and to change the model of communication. And I think this is something what we have to learn as a structures, as a company, because this is culture. I fully agree with Salil's statement, and Prakash repeated as well. Let's say this is not easy game. And you have many levels and many restrictions at every one level, but the education and the motivation of the staff is crucial. You have to train the people to think digitally. This is the point, and not to be afraid. I think that this is a process. This is not one shot. And you know that we are starting now DEPA 2, our academy in India, and we will give our know-how, our knowledge to the pharma professionals in India, really in a very practical manner to do the first, the second, the third step. Thank you, Anna.
Great. Thank you, Peter, for those insights. So Sourabh, your take on what we've just been discussing, your perspective on the patient communities, on the HCP communities, and how to go ahead with those things.
I think I would echo the thoughts which Peter and Prakash has mentioned about the relevance of both. And more importantly, I would like to touch the first point which you mentioned. Is it about data? I think the whole idea about data has become so much cliche now that almost for every activity, people seek that I should get some data, some analytics, and maybe the whole of my machine should throw me some insights which I don't know. So I mean, data has become slightly overloaded now, or too much of overuse. But of course, there is a relevance of data. I don't deny it. But we do have sufficient data for insights now. I think what we need to do is convert those insights to meaningful action. In my mind, typically I will pick up the patient community first, because doctor communities and all are like, the formats have changed, but it is there in for ages. Right? Typically, the way I look at patient community, very relevant for those disease areas where there is taboo and people are not open to talk about the disease. Just look at, let's say, mental health, not very openly talked about. There are people who wouldn't like to even talk to their treating doctors or psychologists for that matter. So their community play a huge role to understand what's the patient going through, and what is that caregiver can do, what is that healthcare professionals can do, and what is the role of each one of us for that matter. Then there are ailments which is only palliative. For example, cancer patients, the whole of the end of life treatment in the palliative. The state of mind of that patient is so very different from a patient suffering from a diabetes or a blood pressure or a COPD or asthma. He is almost sure of the outcomes. And this peer-to-peer community provides a whole lot of support to patient in terms of managing his disease status or managing his life, and know about how others are doing, what are they doing about the whole thing. So I think from more than data, I think this gives a very sharp insight about patient journey, more in depth. Also provides for a very good opportunity for care providers, including HCPs, maybe to know what is patient going through. For mass diseases or something which is more popular, I would say rather, or more prevalent like diabetes or blood pressure or asthma and maybe so on, it's far easy to know. It's more lifestyle diseases now, so people don't hesitate to talk. But there are areas where there is a lot of hesitancy. There are areas where people don't talk about it. I think the relevance of those communities are immense, and patients do benefit more than anyone else. So I think that's a great work. And personally, at least, I've been part of creating one journey for a group of epilepsy patients to create some such community, because that's again one disease area, and typically adolescents and kids who are suffering from epilepsy has a huge taboo. People don't want to talk about it in India, and I'm sure most of you, other than Peter, would be able to echo these thoughts. Somebody talks, the child has epilepsy, very difficult for parents to accept it, talk about it in peers and so on. Those communities have been really, really helpful. Coming to doctor communities, I think the format has really changed a lot now. People are realizing it's no more the world wherein you have to depend on seeing each one face to face. And therefore, those who are interested in quality discussions are doing it a lot. The only change which I envisage in these doctor communities is that it has to go to next level of interaction. No more it's just a knowledge sharing platforms. Knowledge is now available on the click. Everything that you want to know about your subject, you can just Google it, or go to platforms or sites where you have information available, you can get it. But how are we doing it for the purpose of influencing? How are we doing it for the purpose of learning from each other? I think those formats are yet to evolve fully in India. Right? Today also, I think the higher order, if I look at work in terms of peer-to-peer influence, is very low. We are using all the peer communities only for knowledge dissemination, largely, either one way, or you give a small group with 10 people or 20 people, but no way right now, at least I haven't seen many formats wherein people have been able to uplift this community to the next level in terms of creating innovations, in terms of bringing difference to patient life or their own practice. While technology has brought all of us together, but we have only digitized it. The format has changed. Like classical, from a visual aid communication to an iPad, it's just that paper has been converted to a screen. That's it. So unless we leverage that technology to the next level, this is just digitizing. So my sense is right now what we have achieved is digitizing the community. We need to do higher order work in terms of from converting digital interaction to more meaningful interaction, not just knowledge dissemination platforms. Otherwise, it's just that you save time, energy, but beyond a point, it will stop delivering value. In my mind, it has already stopped delivering value. So much of web meetings, so many of these interactions and similar stuff being talked about. So in the same format, can we innovate and bring something which brings value to those who are participating? Can we bring innovation for the practicing HCPs? Can we bring newness for patients? And same thing for patient community. Patient community still is nascent, I would say, but HCP communities definitely need to think beyond knowledge dissemination and knowledge sharing. We need to evolve the format. We have technology at our hand. We have only digitized it. I believe next level of innovation is due in that space. And patient community, I find it extremely useful for those areas where the communities are small, diseases are taboo, know-how is limited to certain quarters of the society, I think it really helps.
Thank you, Sourabh. Those are very good observations that you have made, that for the taboo diseases, especially the mental health and epilepsy and end-of-life care, patient groups would be extremely helpful, because unlike the doctor not being accessible to them, they empathize with each other, and therefore if a pharma company goes and helps in building up these communities, it will be extremely useful, not only to the patient, but the doctor's time will be freed up. Thanks to our keynote speaker and the panel members, our discussion on engaging doctors, digital and hybrid, translating strategy into action has gained a lot of momentum with their insights. And the key takeaways are that building physician and patient communities are important parts of translating strategy into action. We have covered a lot of ground today, so we will have a second round of this same CEO Roundtable with the same panel members, and we will focus on the challenges that pharma has faced in adopting digital so far. And we will also hear from our panel members what are the changes that are needed in terms of mindset and behavior and skills to translate strategy into action effectively, to supplement, reinforce the work of the field force people.